What if the greatest dynasty in ancient Egypt wasn't Egyptian at all, but African kings from the south? What if Black Pharaohs once crossed the desert and reclaimed the Nile River? Tonight, we uncover the rise of Kush. This is the empire that Egypt couldn't erase.
Before the world carved Egypt into textbooks, before Hollywood painted the Nile with pale faces, and long before ancient Africa was divided by borders that never existed, there was a forgotten truth. Egypt was not the beginning. Egypt was the inheritance. And the inheritors were the people of Kush, the kingdom older than Kemet, the southern flame that kept African power alive long after Egypt began to fade. This is the story of the Black Pharaohs, the kings who crossed the desert, sat on Egypt's throne, and wrote a chapter the world tried to bury. Long before the pyramids of Giza, long before hieroglyphs, long before Egypt became a global symbol of civilization, there was Taseti. This was the oldest known Nubian kingdom, right at the border of what would later become Kush. Archaeologists agree. Taseti predates Egypt's first dynasty. Its symbols appear in early Egyptian culture. Its warriors were feared, and its rulers may have even influenced Egypt's earliest kings. Egypt did not rise alone. Egypt rose by looking south. This is where Kush's story truly begins. As centuries passed, Egypt grew stronger, but so did its southern neighbors. By around 2000 BCE, Kush had formed a full kingdom centered at the city of Kerma. This wasn't just a settlement. It was a massive city with mud brick temples, fortified walls, enormous tombs, and powerful rulers. They were skilled metal workers with long-distance trade networks. Kerma was not some small tribe on the periphery. It was a rival. Egypt feared Kush. And when an empire fears you, that means you're an empire too. Kush and Egypt were connected in a complex dance, like an older and younger sibling, like rivals and partners, like fighters and imitators. They traded precious goods. Gold, ivory, cattle, and incense flowed between them. But they also fought. They clashed over border control, dominance of the Nile, and influence over the smaller Nubian cities scattered between them. They shaped each other culturally. In fact, a pattern emerged. Every time Egypt weakened, Kush rose. Every time Egypt rose, Kush adapted. They were born of the same river, the same people, the same ancient lineage, just different chapters in the same epic story. Now, let's fast forward to around 850 BCE. Egypt was collapsing. The land of the pharaohs was plagued by weak rulers, political chaos, and invasion from the north. The priesthood was fighting with royalty. The Nile was vulnerable. And when a kingdom grows weak, the ones who remember the old ways, the true traditions, often rise to the occasion. From the city of Napata, deep in the heart of Kush, a new royal line began to emerge. This was a dynasty with a dream. Not to destroy Egypt, but to restore it. Their goal was to bring the entire Nile Valley back under unified, traditional African rule. The story of this restoration begins with a king named Piye, one of the greatest generals in African history. He didn't march north as a brutal conqueror, but as a restorer. An inscription he left behind states his mission clearly. I do not fight to destroy, but to unite the two lands. Piye entered Egypt with discipline, with respect, and with a clear purpose: to stop the civil wars, to end foreign interference, to restore Ma'at, the ancient concept of balance and order, and to revive the great African traditions of the Nile. And he succeeded. Without needless slaughter, without brutality, and without erasing Egyptian culture, he unified Egypt and founded the 25th dynasty, the dynasty ruled by Kushites. Yes, black kings ruled Egypt, not as invaders, but as its rightful heirs. Piye's successors built an era of revival that Egypt had not seen in centuries. There was King Shabaka, who restored ancient religious texts, rebuilt crumbling temples, and revived Kemet's spiritual foundation. Then came King Taharka, the most powerful pharaoh of his time. He was a great builder, constructing pyramids and temples across the land. He was also a formidable warrior who defended Egypt from the mighty Assyrian Empire. In fact, even the Bible mentions Taharka by name, recognizing him as a powerful African king. Finally, there was King Tantamani, the last Kushite pharaoh, who fought valiantly to preserve the Nile Valley against overwhelming northern forces. Together, these rulers brought back art, architecture, religion, and unity. They restored African sovereignty. Scholars now call this period the African Renaissance of the Nile. So, why was this incredible story buried? After the 25th dynasty fell to the Assyrians, Egyptian history was rewritten by others. Greek historians, Roman historians, Arab historians, and later European colonial scholars all had a hand in it. They wanted to present Egypt as something foreign, disconnected from Africa, perhaps Mediterranean, anything but black. Because admitting that Kush ruled Egypt meant admitting something profound, that Africa birthed one of the greatest civilizations in human history not once, but twice. So, museums hid the artifacts, textbooks skipped the chapter, Hollywood twisted the narrative, and for centuries, the world pretended this incredible dynasty never happened. But the truth has a way of surviving time. And the truth is this: Egypt's greatest revival came from the south. It came from Kush. It came from black kings who remembered who they were. Even after their rule in Egypt ended, the story of Kush was far from over. They returned to their homeland and built a new capital at Meroe. There, their civilization flourished for another 1,000 years. They created their own unique writing system, developed advanced iron-working industries, built distinctive pyramids, and were often ruled by powerful queens known as Kandakis. Think about that. The kingdom that history class never teaches you about outlived the kingdom that history never shuts up about. The legacy of Kush is one of memory, resilience, and restoration. It represents African unity and a mastery of the Nile that stretched for millennia. It is the story of the inheritance that came before Egypt and the rebirth that came after Egypt's decline. Kush didn't just rule Egypt. Kush saved Egypt from collapsing into foreign hands and chaos. This is the chapter the world hid. This is the chapter that we, today, are restoring. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story so it's never forgotten again.
History has a way of hiding the strongest chapters, but if you follow the river long enough, the truth always arises from the south. If this episode opened your eyes to the empire behind the empire, then walk with me into the next chapter. I'm OG Mooney, and this is AI Legacy Lab, where we bring the origins back to life.